at the farthest reaches of the galaxy. It waits for an alien fortune hunter and a Starfleet officer to face their greatest challenge. But most of all, it waits for you. Star Trek Deep Space Nine. In January, the wait will be over.
Destination, remote outpost on the edge of the frontier. Instructions, journey behind the scenes to explore a new Star Trek legend. Officer in charge, Farrell. It is Lieutenant Jadzia Dax. Time of departure, T-minus 10 seconds and counting. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ready.
Just relax and enjoy the ride. My God, they're going into the wormhole.
Setting a new course.
That ship's going to explode in 1 minute. "20 seconds!
Request clearance to initiate docking procedure.
Greetings. We've been expecting you. I hope you've had an exciting journey. I'm Terry Farrell, and I play the character of Jadzia Dax on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I'll be your personal tour guide for an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at the making of this very special television series. To borrow a familiar phrase from Star Trek lore, we're going to journey where none have gone before. Like the original series, the feature films, and The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine is based on Gene Roddenberry's unique vision of the future, a popular legend that has endured for over a quarter of a century. From roots of that historic legacy come the adventures of a new set of diverse characters who continue to encounter new civilizations and explore the ever-changing human condition within a science fiction format. The time is the 24th century, the same era of Star Trek The Next Generation. The title refers to a remote alien space station located at the furthest reaches of the universe, near the mouth of an incredible gateway that can instantly transport travelers light years across the galaxy. To give you a better idea of how this series originated, let's talk to the creators of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Rick Berman and Michael Piller.
We were talking about a series that was going to run concurrently with The Next Generation. We obviously couldn't place our characters on a space station. I mean, on a starship, on the Starship Enterprise or something like it. So we decided to come up with an idea where the adventure, the stories, the strange worlds that we encountered came to us as opposed to us going to them. And what we decided to work with was a space station in a very remote part of our galaxy that was positioned very close to a newly discovered wormhole, a shortcut through space that could take people in a matter of a few seconds to a distant quadrant of our galaxy, an area that would take 60, 70 years to go at normal warp speeds.
Gul Dukat, we know you're headed for the wormhole.
Wormhole? What wormhole is that?
I strongly suggest you do not proceed. We encountered a hostile life form inside.
Perhaps they will be less hostile to Cardassians than to humans.
Dukat, These people are trying to save you from a lot of trouble.
Thank you for your concern. But I think we will see for ourselves.
So much for reason.
Where is our warship?
With any luck, they're in the Gamma Quadrant on the other side of the wormhole.
A wormhole? Our sensors show no indication of a wormhole in this sector.
That's because it just collapsed.
In this series, we set out to create a situation that would provide natural conflict. That natural conflict comes from a number of different sources. In this series, we are set on an alien space station, so immediately on the Enterprise, where you are on the state-of-the-art, most comfortable environment you can possibly think of, in this environment, it is the most uncomfortable place you could possibly think of. Things don't work right. It's not up to our specifications. Chief O'Brien, who is one of our characters, is constantly trying to make this thing work, and is always disappointed about it. So we're uncomfortable there.
You check the EPS converter?
Yes, first thing.
How about the intensity grid?
It's fine.
That's probably the secondary phase modulator. We had trouble with them last week in the main power core. Yeah, that should do it.
Warning, subspace field collapse in 30 seconds.
I'm going to transfer it manually. On my mark, redirect the flow to the deflectors. And keep the power balanced. Aye, sir.
Field collapse in 15 seconds.
Now.
Field energy now within flight tolerances.
Good work, sir.
Computer, you and I need to have a little talk.
DS9 is a station built by a culture called the Cardassians. The Cardassians are a cross between the Nazis of World War II and the Russians before Glasnost. The use of it is offered to Starfleet because the Cardassians no longer have any need for it. The Cardassians, as they leave, take their phasers and do a number on the promenade, and not quite so much damage here in the operations center, but certainly they do damage everywhere they can on the way out, ripping out all the valuable equipment and pretty much making it even more uninhabitable for our Starfleet crew when they arrive.
I'm afraid we've had some security problems. Looks like looters got in here.
Oh, this will be perfect. Real frontier medicine.
Frontier medicine?
Major, I had my choice of any job in the fleet.
Did you?
I didn't want some cushy job or a research grant. I wanted this. The farthest reaches of the galaxy. One of the most remote outposts available. This is where the adventure is. This is where heroes are made. Right here.
Mr. O'Brien, what would it take to move this station to the mouth of the wormhole?
This isn't a starship, Major. We've got 6 working thrusters to power us, and that's it. A 160 million kilometer trip would take 2 months.
It has to be there tomorrow.
That's not possible, sir.
That wormhole might just reshape the future of this entire quadrant. The Bajorans have to stake a claim to it.
When the wormhole is discovered, the space station is towed to the mouth of the wormhole, which is still within the same planetary system, but many hundreds of thousands of miles away, and it becomes a very strategic spot. And the Federation remains, and Cisco and the various other characters that are introduced in the first episode remain, and the series begins.
Many ships dock here.
5 or 6 a week. We sometimes have a whole convoy on its way through the wormhole. But you have the honor of being the first visitor from the other side.
Others will detect ships from your quadrant, as I did, and follow them here.
We hope so. Our mission as Starfleet officers is to seek out new life forms, so we can learn about each other.
We've got a lot to show you in a short time, so let's start by visiting some of the familiar areas you might have seen on our program and talk with some of its cast members. Oh, and along the way, I'll be testing your knowledge of Star Trek history with a few fun-filled questions from the Final Frontier. For instance, do you know how many docking ports there are here on the station?
The Wadi ship has just come through the wormhole. We're sending them to Docking Bay 4.
I need to get to docking port 5 now.
Docking port 6 is clear for approach.
The answer, 6 on the pylons and 12 on the outer rim for a total of 18. This is where I shot my very first scene after being cast on the show. And I have to tell you, I was a nervous wreck. I mean, imagine watching Star Trek as a child on television and suddenly finding out you're going to be part of this legend. It's a thrilling experience, and in the beginning, I think it took me about 4 months to finally settle down and relax. This is the heart of the space station, which we call OPS, or Operation Control Center. You might call OPS the nerve center, or the central hub of activity containing all primary functions that keep this place running smoothly. As you might guess, OPS can get real busy, especially if there's a crisis, and Deep Space Nine is constantly plagued with technical problems. A crisis occurs here about once a week. That's when we usually call on our friend and colleague Miles O'Brien, who was transferred here after serving on the USS Enterprise.
I'm going out to shut down the primary power flow, the whole promenade will go up. Bloody Cardassians! I just got the damn thing fixed. Basically, my role here is I'm the kind of like the chief engineer of the whole the station. I kind of try to, and because the thing is in such a mess, it's a kind of a sleeves up, down and dirty kind of job, because you got to get everything fixed and up and running again. It's like, and it's because my character, because O'Brien is married and has a child, it becomes like there's a familial thing there, which is kind of familiar to a lot of people today. In that it's like one career, you know, you have a husband and wife situation, both with careers, that one career sometimes takes precedent over the other. Look, I'm willing to ask for a transfer if that'll make you happy.
That's not fair either. You have to give up your promotion.
Not necessarily.
I wish I knew the right thing to do. I'm just lost here. Starfleet doesn't need a botanist on the station.
Keiko, there's a whole new quadrant on the other side of the wormhole, full of new plant life to explore.
And ships going to explore it, and I'm not on any of them.
We'll be sending runabouts through the wormhole. I'll see to it you get to go.
I don't need favors from you. I just need to be useful.
Now, imagine you've just spent the day in a runabout dodging a nasty meteor shower. Then you have a run-in with a Klingon who's got a major attitude problem. And now you just want to take off your comm badge and unwind. Where do you go? Well, look no further than Quark's Bar, a 3-story watering hole where customers can gamble, enjoy exotic beverages, and take advantage of a computer-simulated holosuite. This is Star Trek's version of Las Vegas, owned and operated by a profit-hungry Ferengi named Quark.
No need to thank me, madam. Here at Quark's, customer satisfaction is our primary concern. Now, you run along back to the gavel table.
I imagine I get along with most of the occupants fairly well, but the Federation has this probably slight problem with me. They probably think of me as repugnant, although I think of myself as charming. They probably think of me as reprehensible, although I know I have a code of ethics. And but they need to deal with me because I'm a leader of the community and I'm a capitalist.
So, have you figured out the essentials of the game yet?
I believe we have.
Give her a spin. One time on the house. Ah, 2 pins showing. Oh, too bad. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, I always say. What would you care to wager? Oh, what a handsome container. There's an old Ferengi expression. Good things come in small packages.
If you don't take that hand off my hip, you'll never be able to raise a glass with it again.
Oh, I love a woman in uniform.
I think of them as the robber barons of the future, the John D. Rockefellers, the Andrew Carnegies. We're out there to make a buck, and we don't care how we make it.
So, what exactly does it mean, becoming Grand Nagus?
It means that from now on, if you wish to speak to me, you must first make an appointment with Rob.
Don't be ludicrous.
It is also customary to show respect by kissing my scepter. I suppose I could make an exception in your case.
Okay, how about a Ferengi brain teaser? Do you know when Armin Shimmerman first appeared in a Star Trek episode? Well, it first occurred in the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation, when he was cast as one of the very first Ferengi fortune hunters.
If he moves, kill him. That's what we've done. Broken our agreement with their captain. We will accuse the humans of preparing to ambush us. It will be our word against theirs. And who is more trustworthy, Mordock? It looks like gold. Tastes like gold.
It is gold.
If anyone's worried about finding a favorite shopping mall in outer space, have no fear. Quark's Bar is just one section of the promenade, a huge futuristic flea market and amusement center. It's got everything you need, from gift shops to restaurants and beyond. Bargain hunters from all over the galaxy come here.
The promenade itself is like a town. You can even say it's like Fort Laramie in space if you want to compare it that way. You have a security office, which is like the sheriff's office. You have the bar, of course, which is like the Western Saloon. The suites above the bar, like the hotel. There's another open-air restaurant. There's the church, which is a Bajoran temple in our case. And then there's the street. And the street is, you know, the life of the station.
Mr. Cisco, Nog, I thought I told you no dangling over the promenade.
We're not going to follow them. We can see things better from down here.
And what, may I ask, is so interesting?
Nothing.
In that case, you can see nothing just as well from up here. Now, on your feet. Thank you.
But a promenade as big as the one on DS9 can't be run without some major league security. And whenever there's trouble, the crew calls on Odo, an extraordinary alien changeling with a mysterious past.
Well, Odo is a shapeshifter, which means that he can transform into anything that he needs to. He's the chief of security on the space station, and it's his job to make sure that everything runs smoothly in terms of society. It feeds right into his incredible and fierce belief in justice and the need for justice.
I don't want you on this station. Yeah, well, that's too bad, because I have every right to be here.
I decide who has rights and who doesn't on this promenade.
You better ask your Federation superiors about that one.
I don't have to chat with anyone.
The result is that he's sort of, in some ways, quite a tortured character, or a character full of a kind of a mystery. He is constantly searching for his true identity.
I was found in the Denorius belt. I don't know where I came from. No idea if there are any others like me. All my life I've been forced to pass myself off as one of you, always wondering who I really am. Well, the answers to a lot of my questions may be somewhere on the other side of that wormhole.
The Odo can only hold his shape for 6 hours.
Which means in a little while I may disappear.
I cannot hold my shape any longer.
Let go. I'll take care of you.
Oh.
Along with Odo, another important character who helps keep the peace is Major Kira Nerys, the first officer of the station. She's a strong-willed patriot from the neighboring planet of Bejor who fights for what she believes in.
Yes, I've fought my entire life, but for a good cause, for our freedom, our independence. And it was brutal and ugly, but that's over for me now. That's not who I am.
I was a terrorist, a Bajoran terrorist, ex. I have a lot of regrets for some of the atrocities that I committed while I was that. I have very strong belief system, very spiritually oriented, and very much a nationalist. Very much want to see the Bajorans get themselves together as a people. I know all your secrets now.
Is that so?
Bajorans were peaceful people before you came. We offered no threat to you. We could never understand why you had to be so brutal.
I did what had to be done. My men understood that, and that's why they loved me. I would order to go out and kill Bajoran scum.
Make sure you tell that to the tribunal.
Oh, I will.
Then they'll sentence you to death.
We're highly aggressive females, Bajorans. It's a little bit like the ancient Celts. Celtic women were warriors right along with the men, and just as wild as the men. And that's what Bajoran women are like. So I'm not one to wait around to ask permission. I will act. And if it takes physical strength, that's what I'll use.
Kira's people, the Bajorans, are one of 2 alien cultures that play a frequent role on Deep Space Nine. Their arch enemies are the evil Cardassians, who fans might remember from the initial appearances on Star Trek The Next Generation. They represent a constant threat to the safety of the station and its people.
That's Bajoran. That damn Cardassian's firing at a Bajoran scout ship in Bajoran space.
The Bajoran scout ship is badly damaged. Structural integrity is failing.
Medical assistance to Ops. My name is Tanalos. Request political asylum.
We've already shown you how the Promenade of the Future and the ones on our planet are similar in many ways. But there's another similarity we can all relate to. They're the ideal hangouts for kids and teenagers. This is where you'll often find Commander Sisko's son, Jake, an intergalactic army brat who has traveled from ship to ship and planet to planet with little memory of Earth.
This is not really a stable place for me because, you know, we always encounter problems, difficulties. For instance, maybe we get attacked, and that's not really an environment that children should be in, and which is difficult for me to adjust to. I have friends. I meet this kid, Nog. He becomes my friend.
You're sure this is the place? You saw the readout. There's only one female her age visiting the station. And these are her quarters. Go ahead. Ring the bell. Me? You're the one who wants to meet her. Are you afraid of a girl? Then ring. You ring. You are afraid. No, I'm not. You are.
What are you doing?
Deep Space Nine also comes complete with a high-tech medical facility and an infirmary to care for any kind of alien who might come through the wormhole. To help administer first aid in the final frontier, Starfleet has sent an eager young medical graduate, Dr. Julian Bashir.
Computer, analyze test sample 37 Delta. Detail effects on viral containment. Well, Dr. Bashir is a young, brilliant doctor with a romantic vision of himself, which sort of, it's like his eyes are too big for his stomach, a little bit, you know, in that sense. So he might get into all sorts of trouble and needs the people around him who are much more experienced.
He's dangerous.
I assure you, in this condition, he's of no threat to anyone. I have to get him to the emergency unit on the runabout.
Computer, quarter transport.
Sometimes Dr. Bashir can be a bit too eager in his passionate endeavors, especially when he works with Science Officer Dax, the character I play on the series.
Julian, you are a wonderful friend. I enjoy the time we spend together.
Stop. You're driving a stake through my heart.
Try a high-pitched sonic shower. It'll make you feel better.
No, it won't. I've already tried it. Well, I've got a huge crush on Dax. Jadzia Dax. Terry Farrell's character. And I've spent my journey getting to Deep Space Nine from Earth with her. Or at least part of it with her. And I just find her the most attractive thing that ever walked the earth.
We all have fantasies and dreams we keep to ourselves. Thoughts that should remain private.
I'm glad you understand.
Of course I do. I was a young man. Once.
If only Dr. Bashir had a little more respect for his elders, he might get along better with Dax. You see, my character's a Trill, a life form that is over 300 years old. The Trill race were worms that lived underground, along with humanoid bodies that lived above them. However, because of an environmental disaster, the two became dependent on each other. Now she's a joined species comprised of two separate entities. One human, the other a worm-like creature living inside her.
I forgot how different it was.
How different what was?
Being female. I haven't been one for over 80 years. All this attention.
Imagine it must take some getting used to.
Actually, I find it quite enjoyable.
In the pilot episode, there's a scene showing her latest transformation. The elderly gentleman in this scene was Benjamin Sisko's former mentor. In fact, Sisko often refers to Dax as old man. While Dax may appear as a young woman, she possesses the wisdom and the knowledge that comes from 6 lifetimes of experience.
Julian, Trills do not look for romance the same way humans do. In fact, we find it quite a nuisance.
What, a nuisance?
It's a weakness of the young, and although a Trill host may have these feelings occasionally, it is our wish to live in a higher plane, to try to rise above these kinds of temptations.
Well, you said try to rise above, which suggests you don't always succeed.
Julian.
Okay, it's quiz time again. A member of the Trill race was first introduced on an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation as a love interest to one of the main characters. Do you know who that was?
I've researched Earth customs. This flower is given to express love.
Yes, it is.
In addition to the characters and locales we've just seen, each new episode of Deep Space Nine offers the opportunity to explore new worlds and civilizations. Plus, the door is wide open for other familiar characters from the legend of Star Trek to visit this outpost. Let's see how many you can recognize in this next sequence.
Welcome to DS9.
I'll have to talk to Chief O'Brien about these replicators. Or, I don't see how you that stuff. Tastes like liquid polymer.
Delicious.
Come in.
Go away.
Q, bring him back.
What business could you possibly have with that disgusting little troll?
I don't know. You didn't give him time to tell me. Now bring him back this instant.
What's your course?
To the wormhole, then home to Vulcan.
They have a relaxation program here, Jean-Luc, from all tour 7. Listen to this. First, they bathe you in a protein bath. Then a cloud of chromo vapor carries you into a meditation chamber. You should try it.
Perhaps we should all just get some rest. I did not come all this way to rest, Doctor. I would like to see your facility.
All the men I've known who needed to be shaped and molded and manipulated, and finally I've met a man who knows how to do it himself. Oh.
Well, now that we've introduced you to the world of Deep Space Nine, let's see how this television series is put together from beginning to end. To produce just one episode of this series takes about 8 weeks, and it's an elaborate process that requires a large production team. Compared to an average half-hour sitcom taped on a single stage, this 1-hour series requires filming on a minimum of 3 enormous sound stages at Paramount Studios, in addition to other locales needed to shoot the space station and ship models. So where does it all start? Well, it begins right here, with an idea for a story.
You can't fall back on traditional arenas, is what we call them. You have to come up with something that truly explores the human condition, something that has a science fiction element to it, and something that has some jeopardy to it. All those things make it very difficult to come up with ideas for Star Trek.
I'm modifying the flight program to compensate for the space office continuity. We've lost all contact with the space station.
What do you want, human?
My name's Jim.
I know who you are.
What's yours?
What do you care?
Not exactly a lot of friends to choose from around here. You know what I mean?
Nog. My name is Nog.
With a budget for each episode equal to that of a small feature film, the task of mounting DS9 is enormous. Before a single frame is shot, several departments pull their resources together, weeks in advance, to determine what requirements are needed. In the costume department, created especially for the Star Trek universe, wardrobe personnel pull from hundreds of outfits and accessories to dress alien cultures. Through the imagination of skilled production designers and graphic artists come futuristic sets and props, from large exotic temples to handheld tricorders.
These tell you everything, no matter what. My favorite saying was, people used to say, what does a tricorder do? I say, whatever Gene Roddenberry wanted it to do. The Fabergé egg we made for one of our shows. We have 2 of these, a double. The other one's rubber, which we threw and broke.
Very nice.
The Joran phaser. Kira carries this most of the time.
One of the fun things about Star Trek Deep Space Nine is that we literally have 25 years of Star Trek history to draw on. So even though we've come up with a lot of neat new things, we've got this backlog of material that makes it fun to work with. It makes the Star Trek universe a fun place to be. When one of our characters are looking at one of the control panels or the computers and scanning for something or studying something, usually we'll prepare that as a video graphic. And here's one of them. This is we're scanning the promenade to look for some incriminating evidence. And the cool thing about doing this on a computer is you can do it a lot faster and a lot more inexpensively than you could with ordinary old-fashioned film techniques. So using the computer lets us do it. Lets us put more on the screen than we could before.
I'm the concept artist on Deep Space Nine, and what I do is I extrapolate different concepts from the scripts and try to come up with different variations of the designs and submit them to the production designer and the producers for approval. When we designed Deep Space Nine, we went through several different design changes. At one point, the promenade was going to have a monorail system running through it, but what we ended up doing is more of a Cardassian, a more leaner, meaner, and far more interesting look than we have here.
The men responsible for creating many of the original sets you see around here has a long track record with Star Trek, from the feature films to the Next Generation.
One should learn by experience. I did the basic sets for the Next Generation, and I did the sets for Star Trek V and Star Trek VI. So when I was asked to do Deep Space Nine, at least I had quite a bit of science fiction background to call on. In this case, we had 3 empty stages and blank sheets of paper. So we were able to create it all from the ground up, and that was very exciting. And we decided we wanted something that was instantly identifiable from a long way off. So after much machination, we ended up with basically a set of circular rings that are supported by triangular pylons to hold the rings together, and vertical pylons that are very much like claws, which we consider to be the docking ports.
When a story requires the crew to visit another planet, like Bajor, the producers use Stage 18, an immense sound stage that is often reserved for action, stunts, and pyrotechnics. Exterior space, the wormhole as it explodes into view, an incredible sight. The tiny runabout leads out the huge Cardassian warship. That incredible sight I just read to you is from the pilot episode of Deep Space Nine, and it's typical of the scenes found in almost every one of our scripts. Exterior scenes involving the wormhole, the space station, and starships flying through the galaxy are handled by a team of expert special effects technicians working closely with the show's producers.
First thing that we do when we get the script in terms of post-production is break down the optical sequences, see if we can achieve them all for the money that we have. Things like models take, 7 months to develop and build, and it's right up to the last minute. The paint is still wet, and we're going to shoot with it. That's the way it goes. And face it, we're doing a feature film on a television schedule, and we're trying to pull off a big task in a short time.
All right, put your thinking caps on, because I've got a brain teaser for you. In the last sequence, you may have noticed 3 new shuttlecrafts called runabouts docked at the space station. All of them are named after famous rivers on Earth. Can you name them?
We're on our way.
This is the Federation ship Yangtze Kian, Major Kira Nerys in command.
DS9 to Ganges.
Rio Grande to Cisco.
One of the more demanding challenges the production team faced was creating the initial space station models, utilized in every episode.
Well, the Deep Space Nine miniature itself is probably, at least for me, the most expensive miniature I've ever worked with. And we have to build several of them to get all the different types of shots we want to get. So just a comparison, the Enterprise was originally 6 feet. We made a new model, which is 4, but that cost about in the neighborhood of $40,000 to $70,000 for the 2 models. And this is $220,000 for the one big model. So it's big.
You will disarm your weapons and escort us to Sector 001. If you attempt to intervene, we will destroy you.
In the initial 2-hour pilot episode entitled Emissary, the production team had their hands full, staging one of the most incredible battle scenes ever produced on television.
The work on Deep Space Nine is, especially for the pilot, is enormous. It's one of the biggest scenes we've ever done, and it's taken about 13, 14 days to film it, and we normally, like on an average show, we spend 4 days filming, so it's almost 2 or 3 times the size.
On any given day, hundreds of Federation members and aliens from a dozen different worlds can come strolling through the space station. For the makeup crew on Deep Space Nine, that can mean hours and hours of work. And that's not including our regular cast members, Quark, Odo, Kira, and myself. Let's investigate how long this process takes.
One of the interesting challenges on Deep Space, in the makeup department especially, is that we have 2 different races that we're dealing with. One the Bajorans, another the Cardassians. The Bajorans are a race of people that have a small little nose piece down the bridge of their nose, but it means every day, every person who's a Bajoran has to have this applied, so we have to have sufficient amount of makeup artists to apply it. To do something like that, the the makeup and the hairdressing team has to come in around 4 o'clock in the morning. And especially on Deep Space, where we're doing so much of it right now, that means morning after morning, not only do the regular teams come in at 4 o'clock, but we have to hire a team to come in the afternoon to clean the people up.
I come in very early. It can be anywhere from 4 o'clock in the morning to 6:30. It then takes about 3 hours of putting on the appliances. There are basically 2 appliances on my makeup. One is a helmet-like sort of thing that stretches from my eyebrows over my head to the back of my neck. And the other piece is a one piece that stretches from ear to ear across my nose. Once that is all adhered onto my face, it's then painted in, and that takes about another hour. It's still part of the 3-hour process.
It isn't uncomfortable. It's not like it hurts or anything.
It's just that you can't touch your face.
I mean, you can touch your face. It's actually quite amazing. I try and, during the day, remain still and placid so that once the camera rolls for the scene, then I feel free to do whatever I want, and I take chances with it.
In the preliminary stages of a character's development, several makeup designs are tried out before the cameras. As you can see in these early screen tests, my character of Dax endured a few dramatic changes before we arrived on the leopard spot pattern that she now has.
The different characters that we have in Deep Space, as opposed to Next Generation, still have a same feeling of conceptual ideas. And Gene Roddenberry's original idea was that we always find a bit of humanity in everybody. For instance, as much as this character is, you still see his eyes. He can still talk. There's always that little bit of human connection that we can always attach to.
Sound is another crucial element in bringing this make-believe world of the future to life. To give you an idea of how much impact sound can make, let's look at a scene from Deep Space Nine with only the dialogue left in.
I could run a pulse compression wave through the phaser banks. Put out a blaster to make them think twice.
Do it. Damage report.
Direct hit level 14. Empty storage bays, no casualties.
Shields down to 27%.
I could run a pulse compression wave through the phaser banks. Put out a blaster to make them think twice.
Do it. Damage report.
Direct hit level 14. Empty storage bays, no casualties.
Shields down to 27%.
Now let's look at the finished scene with all the sound mixed together.
I could run a pulse compression wave through the phaser banks. Put out a blaster to make them think twice.
Do it. Damage report.
Direct hit level 14. Empty storage bays, no casualties.
Shields down to 27%.
Quite a difference, isn't there? Sound effects and added dialogue are edited into a show in many ways. They can be designed by mixing computer effects together in a studio. They can be created live on the soundstage.
My hand, Madam Ambassador.
Quite a sight, isn't it?
Or actors can loop in background voices, like a crowd of aliens at Quarks. With each version of Star Trek, whether it be the original series, the motion pictures, or the current series, comes a whole new library of special sound effects. Each are distinctly different from each other. Let's use one distinct sound effect we all know as an example. When Captain Kirk told Scotty, "Beam me out," we heard this. Then they modified it for Next Generation's version. And on Deep Space Nine, the Cardassian transporter has its own sound.
Energizing!
Oftentimes, scenes that have already been filmed require special video effects. For instance, if Major Kira or Chief O'Brien fire a phaser, the laser stream shooting out of the weapons must be drawn in later by a special video artist.
My official title is Visual Effects Animator, and so, I'm responsible for animating phaser beams. Anytime you see somebody shoot a phaser, I did that. Enhancing explosions, making white creatures that float around in space, kind of amorphous shapes. We do all of that stuff. I operate a system called the Quantel Harry, and Harry's tied up with a machine called Paintbox, and basically it's like a box of paints and brushes and airbrushes, just with a battery plugged in. So anything you can do with chalk or paint or ink, all that kind of stuff, you can recreate here, just a lot faster. Everything gets done on disk, and then when it's finished, it goes back to tape, they cut it into the show, goes to air. But it's a really long process. It can be up to a month or so between shooting a shot and actually going to air, just because it takes so long to put it all together.
One of the most unique visual effects used on Deep Space Nine is Odo's metamorphosis into a gelatinous liquid. This is accomplished by shooting the actor against a blue backdrop, moving the camera in such a way that it looks like he's rising up from the ground, manipulating the shot with high-tech computer imagery, and combining all the elements together.
We need to make a plaster cast of his head, and it gets digitally scanned, so they have a 3D version in a computer of his exact face and all the little features and how his head is going to move and turn and how his body is going to turn.
This gives us a reference that we use to match the animation in the computer with his movements rising up into the scene. Then, once we have the animation rendered, which then gives the optical watery quality to the image, we take it then into a morphing software where we now morph back to that image of him rising up. Then that scene is comped over the backgrounds that were shot on the sound stages, and then that is a finished scene that can go into the production.
Once the episode has been edited and scored with music, it must meet the producer's final approval. Once that's done, the show is mass duplicated and either shipped or satellited across the country to TV stations. Advertising materials are also sent along to promote that week's episode, and announcements appear in magazines and local newspapers.
Voyage to Deep Space Nine, where an alien virus sabotages the station. Is Q up to his old tricks? My advice to you is to evacuate now. When you live on the edge of the universe, the unknown is your enemy. On an all-new episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Saturday at 7 on Fox 29. Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Wednesday at 9 on Fox 35, Cable 7.
Well, we don't want to reveal all the secrets of how our series is made, but I hope you realize it requires a lot of hard work, and maintaining the high level of quality on this show is very important to everyone here at Deep Space Nine.
Star Trek is not a show about the 24th century. It's a show about Gene Roddenberry's idea of what the 24th century is, which is quite unique. It's like, for people like me and the others who have worked on the show, it's like learning a foreign language. You learn about Gene's idea of what the future is like and what mankind is like and what the world is going to be like in his future. This is something that I have been carrying on as Gene's involvement with Star Trek lessened over the last 4 years. I am totally confident. I can go to bed every night very comfortable with the fact that Gene would be very proud of this television show.
Wait a minute, what's this?
Wave emissions are fluctuating. We're not getting a controlled collapse. Perimeter sensors are picking up a subspace oscillation. What the hell does that mean? Proton counts have tripled.
Residual pulse wave activity from our torpedoes is down to 14%.
Operating. All personnel in lower pylon 1. Report to outer ring airlock. Prepare for evacuation.
I guess we'll have to cut this visit shorter than I expected. This place is always facing some sort of emergency. Well, we better head back towards the ship that brought you here.
Excuse me, Miss Farrell, you're needed in makeup.
I'm sorry, folks. I guess you'll have to find the way back home by yourselves. Have a safe trip, and don't forget to buckle your seatbelts.